Hello everyone, welcome back to Real Life. I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you enjoy these vintage episodes, hit the like button. That helps promote them to like-minded viewers like yourself. Subscribe, and you'll be notified of new episodes. There's something new and different every weekend. Today's episode is another Tides and Trails show. In this episode, Ted spends the afternoon at the fish docks on Campbell Avenue in Vancouver, speaking with various industry individuals about the different kinds of salmon fishing and the impact commercial and sports fishing was having on the stocks. It's a throwback to a different time when fishing boats crowded the waters of Vancouver Harbor and before the large offshore fishing fleets. So sit back and enjoy.
Hi everyone. See this beautiful salmon here? This represents, I would say, a little smaller than average spring salmon, or Thai salmon, or Chinook salmon, or Quinnet salmon, or blackmouth, or king, whichever you'd like to call him. And he, along with his fellow sport fish of the Pacific Coast, the coho salmon, are the subject of tonight's show. We're having a little bit of trouble with the whole picture of spring and coho salmon in a very confined area. And we've got a lot of people with us here on the fish docks, foot of Campbell Avenue in Vancouver. You're going to meet protection officers, you're going to meet representatives of the sportsmen, you're going to meet all sorts of commercial fishing people. And we're going to thrash out this problem of our spring and coho salmon in the Gulf of Georgia. Once again, my name is Ted Peck. A very pleasant welcome to Tides and Trails.
From Canada, from around the world, it's time for Tides and Trails, the show as big as all outdoors. Canada's only outdoor show, brought to you by Sportsmen King-Size Filter Cigarettes. Now, with 2 million Canadians watching, here's Ted Peck.
Here, ladies and gentlemen, once again, stated simply, is the problem. Too many fishermen and too few fish. Both commercial and sport caught spring and coho salmon are what we're going to study tonight. And the simple problem is, once again, there are both sport and commercial fishermen fishing the same stocks of both the springs and the cohos. What are we going to do about it? The first perspective on this problem was given to us by the government biologist, Mr. Dave Marshall of the Government of Canada Fisheries Department.
I'm working with a unit in the Department of Fisheries which is aimed at the scientific management of our salmon stocks in BC.
And the specific project that we're interested in for this show and to show everybody is the one where we went out with you on the Naughty Lady on 2 separate occasions. Now, what are you trying to prove in your studies of these 2 species of salmon?
Well, by way of introduction, I'd like to point out that my particular job is involved in the management of our Chinook and coho salmon in the Gulf of Georgia, and the tagging program that you came along on in the past is aimed at studying the movements of these coho and Chinook salmon in the Gulf.
In just a moment, ladies and gentlemen, we'll show you exactly how all this tagging and the results from which were obtained in the Gulf of Georgia after this very important message. In your tagging program, when you put the tags in them and so on, and you get your tags back, what are you finding out?
What we were initially looking for, Ted, was do these fish stay in the Gulf of Georgia during their entire life, or do some of them leave the Gulf and go to the open ocean and only return to spawn? And if some of them do, or what percentage of them do? Well, our tagging has shown that our Gulf of Georgia coho, and to a large extent our Chinook salmon stocks, stay for their whole life period in the Gulf of Georgia. And this is an important consideration in management.
In tagging, the net is towed by the drum seiner around, and the fish are caught in a purse seine method. And here you see an anesthetic, a long name of which I can't remember, but is used to tranquilize the salmon while they're being caught. And once they are in the anesthetic solution, they quiet down. These young coho here would be in the blueback stage, going anywhere from 1.5 pounds to 4.5 pounds, and the tagging was done during the late spring months. And all the information that the government biologists obtain are going to help increase the stocks of both the spring and the coho salmon. Here you see the tag going under the dorsal fin there. There's a commercial fisherman who is actually working for the government of Canada at this time. And these are the salmon we all love to catch, the young springs and the young cohos that they're working with. And it's these tagging programs, which you and I are helping to pay for, that are going to increase the total value of our sport fishery as well as the commercial fishery in the Gulf of Georgia, where most of the salmon are caught by the tourists every summer. It's quite an intricate process tagging a salmon. And you see them here working on a young spring. And a very neat job it was, too. If you catch one of these tagged salmon, incidentally, there is a reward offered by the Government of Canada to be returned to their offices, and you can collect your reward. There's a little young fellow where you can put in a tag on him, a baby spring, maybe perhaps only 7 or 8 inches long, just out of the river. I used to do this myself years ago on the rivers when they're studying how they went up the mighty Pacific streams, so that we're going to get better commercial fishing everywhere. But the problem, once again, is the multiple use of the two stocks of salmon, the Chinook and the coho. But most sport fishermen will call the Chinook a spring salmon. Tranquilized salmon behave very well, and they've had no losses from the tagging process. Thousands and thousands of salmon have been tagged in this way by Dave Marshall and his crew over the past several years, and of both the species that we're interested in. It takes quite a trick to know how to bend that wire in just a certain way that it doesn't hurt the young fish, and you can swim with it and feed properly. Once again into the recovery tank, and soon he'll be on his way to grow and give some sport to a lucky fisherman or some good prices to a commercial man. What are your plans on behalf of the government to increase the stocks of the local Chinook and coho?
Well, we find that the most effective way of protecting our salmon is through careful management. And science is finding out new things every day, new methods of protecting these fish. And of course, we've advanced to the stage now where we're trying to distribute these fish amongst sport fishermen, between sport fishermen and commercial fishermen, so that everybody can have their fair share, and there are still adequate fish left for the escapement to maintain the run over the years.
What do you deem as necessary, Dave, as far as protecting these salmon? You say allow enough for escapement. What is enough? What is the percentage of the total stock that must get away to spawn?
Nobody has really discovered what the spawning ground requirements are yet, and of course this is a field which is being investigated quite closely. Usually in the past we've operated on the theory that approximately 50% is enough to ensure proper seeding, and it varies of course with the different salmon species. Coho salmon are probably the most elastic species. You can maintain your runs of coho salmon with a very limited number of spawners.
Scenes like this, ladies and gentlemen, are what we would like to duplicate in every side stream of the Gulf of Georgia. What you see here are both pink salmon and the giant springs spawning in the same river. These scenes were taken in the Atnaco, a few miles north of the Gulf of Georgia, where there are thousands and thousands of salmon of all species able to get to the spawning grounds, lay their eggs, die, and recreate the cycle that is so vital to both the sport fishermen and the commercial man alike. And these spawning salmon here ensure that there will be a good pink salmon run, for instance, in this case 2 years from now in the Atnaco. But we've suffered thousands and thousands of salmon losses in the streams adjacent to the Gulf of Georgia. In other words, the east coast streams on Vancouver Island and the streams on the mainland right from Vancouver north to perhaps Butte Inlet and Knight Inlet both. We must bring these salmon back, the cohos and the springs, to the level that you see these pinks here spawning.
The department is already launching an intensive investigation of the life history of the Chinook salmon at the Qualicum River project, which I believe you visited.
That's right, we visited
Vancouver Island. And apart from our own work in this particular field, the Fisheries Research Board of Canada and various other agencies throughout the world, or I should say throughout North America, that deal with Pacific salmon are taking a close look at all the factors that contribute to their production. And it's just going to be a matter of time. We're getting the answer slowly.
Now, in the sport fishing department, the coho salmon first. These scenes taken in various areas of the Gulf of Georgia, all the way from Johnson Strait right down to the Strait of Juan de Fuca, catching them by all methods. Here's one trolled caught specimen of perhaps 7 or 8 pounds, using a little lure that it uses the herring strip. Another trolled caught specimen here. Put up tremendous fight, the coho, and by far the most popular salmon because there are more of them than there are the giant springs. And they put up a tremendous acrobatic fight and can be caught all the way from the month of March right through until the month of October in various areas of the Gulf of Georgia at increasing size. An old buddy, Chuck Diven, landing a very nice coho here of perhaps 7 or 8 pounds. This was done up in the Pender Harbor district a couple of years back. One of the most popular areas for salmon fishing all over the Gulf of Georgia is that stretch of water adjacent to Pender Harbor on the east side of the Gulf, and then of course Qualicum, Parksville, Nanaimo area on the west side. And this is where a lot of your cohos are caught by both the sport fishermen and the commercial men both. These salmon here taken by the method of trolling, as you can see the herring flasher. And others, of course, are caught by the strip casting method. We've showed you before how to do these types of fishing, and we've been very lucky on several trips that you've seen on film, but there's been lots of people during the last several years particularly that have gone out on fishing trips that haven't been so fortunate. And this is the whole idea of this show, to make sure that we do have salmon forever and to show you what the government is doing about it. One of the most important groups of people working in this field are the BC Federation of Fish and Game Clubs. Thousands of organized sportsmen with good advisors talking with government men as well. And we talked to the president, Mr. Kenny Hodson, and here are his reactions, and as he is speaking for the BC Federation of the Fish and Game Clubs.
Well, I think that the plans that the federal department are putting into action now are going to show some real good results. I'm quite sure of this. We're going to have to go along with it for a few years as laymen and take the experts' advice, but I'm sure we're on the right track now.
You love to fish yourself, I know that for many years, Ken, and the fact that this Saltwater Advisory Board is now instituted, I think was the idea of the Federation, wasn't it?
Something we asked for 2 years ago, Ted, yes.
And this is really working now, is it?
It's working very, very well.
How many clubs are involved now in conservation?
Around 174 at last count, Ted.
174. How many thousand members?
About 22,000.
Well, you're sure doing a fabulous job, and I know even the people in Kamloops or Revelstoke and places in the interior of British Columbia are very interested in the saltwater because they come down for their holidays here and they fish for it. And I hope that people, when they come out here from Saskatchewan or Newfoundland even, or Ontario, that they'll always have these salmon here to fish for. Now, is there anything you'd like to bring out of what you're doing?
Well, as the name implies, it's an advisory board, and this facts and statistics are presented to us and we're asked our opinion on them. And as I say, the program that's going on now, as I imagine the federal men are explaining, is a type of management, I think, that's going to divide the fish evenly between the sportsmen and the commercial men and leave a basic stock to
go back in to good spawn and come back again. Now to the giant spring salmon, another one of the favorite sport fish all over the world. Here's a typical May or June fish taken in the Pender Harbor district of some 17 pounds. These fish go all the way from the immature stage, called the blackmouth, up to this giant specimen taken by Ray McCormick right in Horseshoe Bay that might go 35 pounds. These fish can be taken all year round sport fishing, and we've showed you many times the various methods of doing so. But they, again, are on the decline in many of the local streams, and many of the fish caught in the Gulf of Georgia are heading for the Fraser River system. And as such, just pass through the Gulf. Many of these springs, as we're told to you by the biologist, live in the Gulf all year round. Here's a winter-caught specimen taken on Christmas Day of 28 pounds. Here's a smaller one taken in the winter again, 12 pounds, taken up in the Squamish district. Fine fighting fish to be had any month of the year. And they peel off lots of line, too. But once again, the highest prices paid for any salmon are paid to the commercial fishermen who troll catches one of these giant springs. Prices of as high as, well, 68 and 70 cents a pound. So they're very valuable to both the sportsman and the commercial man. A lovely specimen here, taken in the early spring, maybe in February, of about 14 or 15 pounds. People who live on the Pacific coast of Canada are very privileged to be able to take giant fish of this size any month of the year. And to protect them should be in the interest of everyone watching this film, whether you live in Newfoundland or whether you live right on the coast of British Columbia. Because everyone has the opportunity of visiting BC to be able to take one of these trophy fish, which are just as good eating as they are in the catching. Here's a troll-caught spring, the mouth of a river, taken in August. This would be a giant specimen of some 40-45 pounds. And this is the same breed of fish called the spring, the chinook, the quinnet, the tyee, the blackmouth, the king, that will go as high as 100 pounds in weight. The rod and reel record of this fish is 92 pounds, but there have been commercially caught fish of this species that will go 145 pounds. So they're the real tackle busters. Here's one taken, as I say, as a tyee off the mouth of a river, much as Campbell River is famous for and the Comox area is famous for, that weighed around 40 pounds. Once again, I state a fabulous fish taken either commercially or sport. So let's save them in the Gulf of Georgia, where most of them are taken by sport fishermen. We next talk to Mr. Jim Murray, who is interested from both angles, from the commercial angle and from the sport fishing angle as well.
I think now the commercial fishermen are really getting to understand the importance of conservation of the spring and coho salmon, with the where we've got to have an equitable distribution of these fish between the commercial man and the sport fisherman, and to see that each party, shall we say, concerned will get their fair share of the fish, and then also that we can still get enough fish up to the spawning grounds to have our returns. This is the most important thing.
Well, let's look at it this way, Jim. I am a Canadian citizen, so are you. And I will defend with almost everything that's in my power to do so, the right to go commercial fishing when I'm out of work, for instance, for $1 a year. And a lot of people have their own little trolling boats that they subsist on one income, and then they augment it by going out on the other side. But something I don't like is a sport fisherman, strictly sport fisherman, buying a commercial license just to help paying for his gas. How do you feel about this?
Oh, Ted, I'm in full agreement with you on this, because this is something that we've been trying to work on for the last almost 5 years now, and on, shall we say, the moonlight fishermen. There's this problem, and we have discussed this problem with other fishers and with the fishermen's union, and they're fully aware of this. And also, with the sportsmen, they go out and sports fish, and then have the privilege of fishing in a sports fishing area with a commercial license. I'm not in agreement with this at all.
This problem has got to be really brought out and something done about it. But as I say, I will defend almost with my life the right for me to go and get a commercial license if I'm out of work and go catch salmon for a living. Here's a type of fishing, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't recommend too highly. And it's something we've all enjoyed, and that is catching the smaller bluebacks, or coho, at an immature stage. This is very popular along both the Vancouver Island side and the other side as well, the mainland side. But here's a little immature coho being watched by a seal, about 2.5 pounds. And we don't recommend this. It can provide some excellent sport, but at the same time, these fish are available. So are the giant spring salmon. So if you would confine your efforts during the spring months to fishing for the larger salmon, these little fellows will grow to be 15-pounders by September and October. Bluebacks, as I say, are just the local name for the immature coho salmon that are found all the way along from March right through until they become legal size and full-grown cohos in the summertime. Something a lot of people don't realize is that the coho salmon does all his growing during his last year of life, and the same fish that is 12 inches in March will be 12 pounds in September. And it is because of this tremendous growth that the Government of Canada has introduced some new regulations. And to get to the meat of these new regulations, we talked to a Government of Canada Fisheries Officer, Mr. George McIndoe.
Effective June the 1st coming up, the sport limit per person per day will then become 4 salmon rather than 8 as it is now.
Well, the old limit was 4 salmon and 4 grills, so in effect, that's what happened. Well, if you caught your 4 salmon, you still could catch 4 grills.
That's correct, yes.
Now, this will not be in effect.
No, you'll be allowed 4 fish of the salmon species over 12 inches. Doesn't matter what size they are, as long as they're over 12 inches, you're only allowed 4 per day, whereas previous to this coming June 1st, you were allowed a total of 8, of which only 4 could be over the 3-pound mark, but you could also have 4 under the 3-pound.
Yeah. Now, I think this is a good regulation. It'll, if people want to catch grills, fine, they can catch 4 of them, over 12 inches. But then they can't catch any salmon, so you've got to have it one way or the other.
Well, yes, it will cut down the harvesting of immature fish. Let's face it, there's not too much good killing all your cattle off as veal, is there?
No, that's right. And I'm particularly interested in our Gulf coho, as we were talking to Dave Marshall, the biologist, about it. And they're finding that a lot of them grow up right in the Gulf of Georgia here, and they spend their whole life here. And we would rather catch a 10-pound one than a 2-pound one, let's be honest. Now, in your responsibility, you deal with commercial fishing a lot too, George, don't you?
Yes, we do, yeah.
And Jimmy Murray a while ago was mentioning something about there's a change in the opening, but I think he got the date wrong, so let's get that straight.
I think Jim mentioned July the 15th as being the opening for coho for commercial men in the Gulf, whereas actually it's July the 1st, which is still 2 weeks later than it has ever been previously.
And the fish will probably be almost a pound heavier than they would be in June, wouldn't they?
Yes, they grow quite rapidly at that time of the year, and here again it's the same thing as the change in the sport regulations. It's to prevent fish from being harvested immature.
So, to round out out the problem, as it were. There's lots of salmon, but will there be salmon like this tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and for our grandchildren? That's the problem. Let's do what we can, all of us, to save the salmon in the Gulf of Georgia and increase their populations to the spawning grounds so that there will be sport and a commercial living for all who wish to enjoy it. And in the words of one of the many commercial fishermen we talked to,
I think one time commercial fishing was a little animosity towards sport fishermen, but there today, more or less, with salmon unlimited, it's a pretty nice thing for trawlers in the Gulf of Georgia. We're quite conscious of that, and we sure go along with all the regulations, more so than we used to.
So there is the situation and the problem, ladies and gentlemen. It's up to all of us to make sure we have salmon in the Gulf of Georgia forever, for both sport fishing and commercial men alike. I hope you enjoyed coming along with us tonight and really studying the salmon from a little different point of view, except from the end of the rod. And Dave, personally, thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you, Ted. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed it, ladies and gentlemen. Join us in your living rooms again next week. And as we say, and particularly this particular show, be a true sportsman, think about conservation all the time, about all wildlife. Ted Peck wishing you all the best. Tight lines, straight shooting.
Join us again next week for another Tides and Trails, Canada's only outdoor show. The show as big as all outdoors. Brought to you by Sportsmen King Size Filter Cigarettes.
Thank you to all my Patreon supporters, members, donors, and subscribers. It's a pleasure producing these fascinating little episodes. If you want to see more of these old reels restored and preserved, consider supporting by hitting the thanks button or becoming a monthly member. Your support will help preserve these old reels. Have a great day, be kind, and we'll see you again next time on Real Life.